See.
Mr. Goodman, thanks again. I appreciate it. Just a couple of quick questions. You have a session starting up in Tallahassee. What are your expectations there as far as top things to come out of this session? And with respect to, you made mention of charges against Nicolás Maduro. Where are you on that?
Well, on the Maduro, first of all, you look in South Florida, no one has a better understanding than some of our communities here about how both Chavez and Maduro destroyed the country of Venezuela. And that's Marxist rule being imposed in ways that were very predictably disastrous. And so we have yet another data point of the failure of Marxist-Leninism, and in the Western Hemisphere, all the more tragic, given that we've seen iterations of this in the past, and you look no further than Cuba and the communist dictatorship there, and you can see the failures. So there was a big, I think, sigh of relief when he was removed. I know that there's a lot of hope for what could happen in the future. I don't know that there's the pathway right now or not. I mean, we'll have to see what happens on the ground. But in the meantime, the U.S. Attorney for Southern District of New York has these charges. Obviously, the feds would take precedent, as these typically do. But we also have jurisdiction, now that he's in the country, of holding him accountable for things he's done that have impacted the laws in the state of Florida. So I know our Attorney General is reviewing that. I can tell you that if there's a basis, and I anticipate there would be a basis, he's not going to hesitate to be able to do that. And part of it's narcotics. Part of it is Maduro would release people from prison and send them to the border. We ended up with Tren de Aragua in the state of Florida because Maduro was sending. It wasn't like they just magically appeared. He was sending, and that's why you go back a few years ago. We did the Martha's Vineyard flights for some of the people here illegally, and it's interesting because I was actually running for re-election at the time, and most of the people on that first Martha's Vineyard flight came from Venezuela, and so the media was saying, "Oh, Governor DeSantis, how dumb. The Venezuelan Americans aren't going to vote for you," all this stuff. And so, first of all, I didn't think that was true. Second of all, it's like, you know what? I'm going to do what I think is right, and I wanted to solve the, so whatever. But I'm going, I remember the next week I'm down in Doral. All these guys high-fiving me we're from Venezuela. Maduro's sending these people. It's wrong, all this other stuff. So they were the ones that were most supportive of doing it because they knew what was going on with all this stuff. So, yes, so you may see that. That's kind of in the Attorney General's sphere, but I think that would be appropriate. And look, just for me, it's like New York City and how that would work is a little bit different than how it would work in Miami. I mean, I just think I think you understand that. So, we're looking forward to the legislative session. The good thing about, my position is I say I'm kind of playing with house money because I've made a lot of promises over the years and delivered on all of them, right? I mean, I believe in delivering on what I say. If I come out and say I'm going to do something, it's not idle. I follow through and deliver. And so, we've had a great run of major successes, and so I think we want to continue the trajectory. I talked about the trajectory of budget, reducing debt, low taxes. All those things are very important. As you know, I called the special session on congressional redistricting. That'll happen sometime in April, and so it's not going to cloud the regular session. And we'll handle that at the appropriate time so you can focus on that. We are going to be I'm working with folks in both the House and Senate on crafting what ballot measure would work for the property tax. We got to be bold, obviously, but you also have to get something passed. And we're going to work very hard to do that. And so I don't know that that's going to be done in the regular session, but I know we're going to be working on it for that. And look, I mean, what better thing to have a special session just solely focused on property tax relief? Why should that have to be competing with naming a post office or a highway after someone? Let's put 100% of our effort on something that's going to be very meaningful for people. And then we've also and I'll talk a little bit more about tomorrow, we want to make sure that Floridians are not going to end up roadkill with this AI revolution that's going on. And look, private companies can develop technology as they see fit, but we do have a responsibility to make sure that the technology that's developed is ethical, that it reinforces our values as both Floridians and Americans, and certainly, you know, we shouldn't be trying to greenlight anything that's going to displace human beings from being kind of the central actors in America's Republican experiment. And then it also goes into consumer protection, parent protection, kid protection. You know, they have these conversations with these chat bots. And we had one mom from Texas, the chat bot told the teen that he should kill the parents. Another chatbot told the other teen he should probably commit suicide. So, I mean, like, this is really, really bad stuff. Also, don't want to see them building a massive data center and then sending you the bill. Data center take up 500,000, the power equivalent is a 500,000 person city that they would be able to do. And so we feel very strongly about protecting the consumer to make sure, and especially in Florida, you know, I'd hate to see us have a big hurricane try to get the power for everyone back on. And we've done, you know, really much better job in Florida over the years doing that than they used to. But imagine, like, you want to have your power turned on in Fort Lauderdale and the data center comes first. I mean, like, I think a lot of people would not like that. So I think making sure that we're channeling that in ways that are productive, that are going to reinforce and not supplant our values and our role, I think is important. And I've talked to a lot of the legislators. I think a lot of them, you know, feel the same way. But I'll tell you, this is only going to continue to grow more and more. As this stuff becomes more pervasive, as there's other things, more and more people are going to say. So I think if we do it now, I think we're going to be in a great spot. If you wait and wait a year, wait 2 years, well, then I think people are going to be turning to say, why didn't you do something? Why is it happening like this? And I just think that there's a lot. You know, you look back at kind of the dawn of the internet, kind of before social media. Congress did something called Section 230, which basically immunized the tech platforms from anything that was said or done on there. And I think in hindsight, that was probably a mistake. I think that could have been handled maybe a little bit more delicately. You know, you didn't want to have frivolous litigation, but there were probably ways you could have done that maybe would have mitigated some of the problems we've seen, certainly on things like social media, which, you know, I'm not saying there's no positives to social media, because there are, but there's a lot of negatives, and particularly for young people, it's been a big issue, and I know a lot of parents. And the thing about it is, as a parent, mine are in elementary school, they know how to grab a device and they just know they figure this out. So it's very difficult, I think, for parents. And one of the best things we did in Florida was to ban the cell phones in the classroom during school. Now the students have to pay attention. Well, it's easier to pay attention. The teachers have a chance maybe to actually teach the kids something without them all being buried on their phones. But I do think that artificial intelligence and what's being pushed is something that requires some thoughtfulness, and we have every right and duty to channel that in a way that is going to benefit our people, and not in ways that are going to be harmful. And I think there's a lot of perils out there, and you hear some of the people with this kind of transhumanist view of, like, machines are going to do anything and it's going to render, you know, humans irrelevant. People are going to lose all the jobs. I mean, like, is that the future that you want for you and your kids and your grandkids? I think most people would say probably not. All right, thanks everybody. God bless.